Do you really need a DI box? Let's talk about it. As tech gets better and better and audio interfaces get better and better, I always get asked, hey Fluff, do I really need a DI box with my interface? My interface sounds pretty good. And my answer is usually, yeah, you do. And before we go any further, this video is brought to you by the fine folks over at Sweetwater. Sweetwater has all your pro audio needs covered, whether you need a DI box, an audio interface, outboard gear, cables, and more. Sweetwater.com is sponsor of this video. All thoughts and opinions are still mine. So recently, my friends over at Rupert Neve Designs put out a brand new baby brother to their other DI product lines. This is the RNDI-M Direct Box. And I thought this was a good opportunity to kind of talk about DI boxes, on how they apply to us home guitarists and recording setup guys, producers, and why you should always have a good DI box on hand. So there are two main types of DI boxes. There's active and there are passive. Now, everyone's situation is different. Everyone's needs are different. However, there is a general rule of thumb where you want an active DI box with passive pickups and a passive DI with active pickups. However, I have used both with both active and passive pickups and have never really had a problem with any of them. Now, any DI box's main purpose is to convert an unbalanced, typically 1/4 inch signal coming in at the input, your guitar cable, into a balanced XLR output to then go into your recording device or audio interface. Now, there are a few advantages of doing something like this. First, the aforementioned noise floor. The noise floor is dramatically lower. However, you can use much, much longer cable runs using a balanced cable than you can an unbalanced cable. We all have experienced the super long guitar cord and now you lost all your top end. Yeah, you don't really get that effect that early with the XLR cable because it is a balanced design and we are converting to it via a DI box. The second reason to use a DI box is you typically are going to get a much higher level of headroom, 20.5 dB of gain at the input on this bad boy versus the headroom using the high Z input of your audio interface. Now, I'm not talking about all our audio interfaces. However, most of the entry level and budget-minded interfaces, if you use really hot active pickups, just as an example, you will find yourself clipping your DI, and that is not what you want to be doing. Now, piggybacking off of the second reason, the third reason is sonic information. I want all of the sonic information coming out of my guitar. So I want all of the low end, I want all of the top end. And this is typically where you will find sacrifices if you were to compare a DI, foreshadowing, plugging straight into an interface versus using a DI box and the balanced output via XLR. I'll show you. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty nerdy stuff. Let's see if there's a difference between going into the DI box and XLR out into our interface versus going straight into the high Z input on our Focusrite 2i2, all right? This is a decent interface and I've used it many times. I also used to travel with it quite a bit. However, whenever I would get stuff back here in the studio, I would go, it doesn't sound the way I wanted it to, or it doesn't sound the way I thought it was sounding as far as guitar and bass DIs and things like that. So here was the setup. I used the through, the 1/4 inch through on the Rupert Neve to go into the high Z input of the Focusrite while also recording at the same time the balanced output of the same DI box. Okay, now technically speaking, this is giving the high Z a little bit of a sonic advantage because we are going through the Rupert Neve to some physical degree, all right? It's not a true Y cable and you get into loads and all that kind of stuff. However, just a quick and dirty A-B comparison, I recorded the same performance on my guitar at the same time, and we can just A-B the DIs that we have here in Pro Tools, all right? So the DI up top, this blue one, is the direct DI using the high Z input of the Focusrite. This bottom waveform is using the balanced input of the Rupert Neve, okay? Using it proper. Now, I have a trim plugin to flip the phase, because we're gonna do some null listening as well. I have this trim plugin in Pro Tools. I have the phase reversed. First, let's hear just the high Z input on the Focusrite. Let's give it a listen. Now let's go ahead and listen to the DI as it was taken right out of the DI box with the balanced XLR output. Now, you should be listening to this part of the video on headphones or studio monitors, not your cell phone. I hear some difference in the low end and the top end, which is typical, as we talked about with just about any DI box. This is gonna be a little bit more high fidelity sounding. So let's listen to both of these DIs with the phase flipped on one of them so we can hear the null, the differences in the two DIs recorded at the same time. Let's check this out. That's a lot of low mid and low end information that we're missing with the high Z input on the Focusrite. And let's go back and listen one more time to the direct input using the high Z of the Focusrite. Now let's listen to the Rupert Neve DI. You can hear the low end information in the Rupert Neve DI. I mean, you don't have to listen to it that closely. Let's zoom in on the wave files, on the waveforms. Let's just see if we can even see any difference. So you'll notice, I mean, let's grab a spot like right here. You'll notice these peaks and valleys are slightly not as pronounced on this direct high Z input versus the DI. There is a slight more dynamic range, just a hair. Is it dramatic? Absolutely not. Would this make a difference even more in a bass guitar DI? Yeah, absolutely. Would you hear a difference over the course of an entire song with multiple tracked guitars, etc., etc.? You sure would. You sure would. Now, I want to be very clear when talking about DI boxes. Are DI boxes a Band-Aid or an all-in-one sound better solution for guitar players tracking themselves? Absolutely not. You are the sum of your parts, so that still requires you to have a properly set up guitar, a good sounding guitar, quality cables and things like that. A DI box though will ensure repeatability, low noise floor, and high headroom, which I guess you could say is going to make you sound better when you go to use that DI on an amp sim or a real amplifier and in a mix. I will link down below in the description if you'd like to know more about the Rupert Neve RNDI-M Direct Box. And with that, you've been wonderful. I've been Fluff. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.